We used to walk 15 kilometers to school every single day. Or we didn't have the iPads, iMacs, and iPhones to help us out. I'm sure each and every one of us over here has heard these sayings from your parents, grandparents, or even great-grandparents a multitude of times. But what if they did? What if your grandparents grew up with the iPads, iMacs, and iPhones? How would that have affected their life? So the curiosity in me needed to find the answers. So I sat down with my grandpa to have a chat. And the conversation quite literally left me appalled. What he considered to be his normal day-to-day life was one of my worst nightmares. So I invite each and every one of you to join me in the day of my life of my grandfather at the age of 17. So instead of waking up to the annoying iOS alarm, which he'd snooze a bunch of times, he used to wake up to the unsnoozable, loud, annoying rooster's crow. Then he'd complete his numerous kilometer journey to school, where he'd attend his lessons and then seat himself at the school library for the next few hours. At the library, he'd be hoping and praying that the books he needed for his research assignments were available, or else he'd be pushed a whole week behind on his deadlines, and we know how the teachers are. Then he'd return home, spend some time with his parents, help his mother out with the household chores of cooking and cleaning, play cricket with his friends, and then repeat the cycle over and over again. During this conversation, one of the main questions which was in my head was, what about his intrusive thoughts at 3 in the morning? How did he find the answers to life's biggest questions without the power of Google? He didn't have a phone. This talk made me understand a lot of things, but one of the main things was that there have been so many changes just within the 3 generations in my family itself. The hopes and dreams and aspirations my grandparents and parents had are so drastically different compared to the hopes, dreams, and aspirations I have and my friends have. But why? Why does Generation Z, the group of us born between 1998 and 2010, have such drastically different hopes and dreams? What was that one event that shaped us? I'm pretty sure everyone thinks of the same thing: technology. Technology has evolved into a vital aspect of our daily lives. Nobody over here could go probably 3 hours without their phones at most. We must recognize how fortunate we are to be born into this technologically revolutionized world. The access we have to information is astonishing compared to our predecessors. We live in a forum which is growing at a rapid pace, a forum where we aren't just receiving the information, but we ourselves are the main contributors. The access to technology has enabled us to be in touch with people from all over the world and have conversations with people from completely different backgrounds. A person from Generation Z would be able to talk to a politician and then talk to a laborer just by doing a simple Google search and understanding what type of conversations need to be had. I've been fortunate enough to make friends across the world, across borders. I've made friends in Australia, Canada, Bangkok, Russia, Ukraine, and I could go on and on. And I've been able to understand and empathize with their struggles, understand their causes and how I could be of help to them, how I could cause change to occur in their life. Change could be done by a singular tweet or just by sharing a post. A singular tweet, a 280-character message, is influential enough to start a worldwide trend, cascading into a cycle of change. But why is this change necessary? It's imperative that change occurs in this fast-paced world. We'd assume that by the time we're sending people off to Mars, we would also have the access for basic human rights for every single person in society. However, as time progresses, it seems that the goal of equality for everyone goes further and further away. This last year, I traveled on an annual family trip to India. India is a place I associate with fun, family, relaxation, big fat Indian weddings, and just an overall good time. However, this year, I was forced to recognize the privileged life I was growing up in. On a night out with my cousins, we were approached by an 8-year-old girl named Roshni. Roshni came up to us and she begged for a singular loaf of bread. She explained to us how the tragic passing away of her father meant that she had to find the means to feed the rest of her family. Roshni should have been in a stable house receiving education, learning about the process of photosynthesis and the life cycle of butterflies. Instead, she was forced to live on the streets of India, hoping and praying that strangers would find it in themselves to show mercy and help her find the first square meal of her day. This left me appalled. When I went back home, I was overcome with an overwhelming sense of guilt. I felt guilty for sleeping in a bed. I felt guilty for going back home and not being scared for my life, or not knowing where the next meal was coming from. I knew I could help Roshni out over there. I bought her the first meal. But what about the next day, or the day after that? What would she have done once people stopped empathizing with her, or they just started shooing her away? I knew that at the back of my mind, when I went to sleep, there would be a million other children like Roshni who would be hoping and praying that someone would find it in themselves to buy a meal, just for that day, just to survive that first day. Now, there will be around 250 million people pushed into extreme poverty by the end of 2022. This does not account for people living in relative poverty. 250 million people will not have basic access to food, water, education, or shelter. Think about that. Think about their desperation, their helplessness, and the plight they feel. But the thing is, we, Generation Z, we have a voice. We have the ability. We have the platform. And we know we can drive change. So why not change stuff which matters? We know that we have the ability. We have the resources. So let's use these resources to make sure that all 8-year-old children in the world get to learn about photosynthesis and get to learn about the life cycle of butterflies. Let's make sure that nobody has to feel the plight and helplessness that Roshni felt, pleading strangers to feed her food. I want everyone to think about something. What is the one thing in society that you see and you want to change? Because at the end of the day, this is our world. Generation Z, we are the future. So I urge you to think about what is that thing that you want to change? Because what kind of world do you want to live in? We're going to start families in this world. What kind of world do you want to start a family in? But most importantly, what kind of future do you want to be waking up in for the rest of your lives? We have the ability, we have the resources, we have the platform, we just need to find the motivation. Once you have the motivation and the drive, we as a generation are unstoppable. So be the drivers of change. Be the change you want to see in society. Because Generation Z, we are the catalysts of change, and we will change the world together for the better. Thank you very much.